Amid the early phase of a new era leading into the 2026 engine regulations, tensions are beginning to feel increasingly real. Ferrari has openly voiced concerns that the FIA may not yet fully understand what Mercedes is actually doing with its engine development. This is not mere speculation. It is a serious allegation that could dramatically reshape the competitive landscape. Behind Mercedes' impressive early season performance, a series of technical controversies has emerged, sparking intense debate across the paddock. If there is indeed a loophole being exploited, does this represent a stroke of engineering brilliance or a weakness in the regulatory system? And is Ferrari uncovering a critical truth or simply applying political pressure at the dawn of a new regulatory era? Let's discuss. The first controversy centers on engine compression ratio, one of the most crucial aspects of the 2026 Formula One regulations. The new rules explicitly reduce the maximum compression ratio from 18:1 to 16:1, aiming to maintain engine stability while accommodating the use of sustainable fuels, a key focus of this new era. However, amid this push for standardization, suspicions have emerged that Mercedes may have developed an advanced technical approach, allowing the compression ratio to change dynamically when the engine operates under real on-track conditions, something not explicitly defined as a violation, but potentially against the spirit of the regulations. Technically, Mercedes' power unit has passed all official FIA tests, yet this is precisely where Ferrari's main objection lies. These tests are conducted in highly controlled environments where parameters such as temperature and pressure remain stable, conditions far removed from the complexity of real racing scenarios. On track, fluctuations in temperature, variations in air pressure, and constantly changing engine loads can trigger significantly different behavior. Ferrari believes this is where a regulatory loophole may exist, allowing engine performance to adapt beyond standard testing scenarios and creating a competitive advantage that is difficult to detect through conventional homologation procedures. If it is true that the engine behaves differently on track compared to static testing conditions, this raises a far more complex dilemma than a simple regulatory issue. Legally, such a solution might still fall within permitted boundaries. Yet in practice, it could deliver a significant advantage that is extremely difficult to identify through conventional inspection methods. This situation ultimately reinforces concerns that the FIA's oversight capabilities may not yet be fully equipped to keep pace with the rapid evolution of increasingly advanced and adaptive technologies. The second issue arises from the aerodynamic sector, particularly concerning the front wing design of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. In several broadcast clips, there are indications that the wing structure exhibits a certain degree of flexibility at high speeds, potentially altering airflow characteristics around the car in a dynamic way. This phenomenon has drawn attention because flexible aerodynamic components have long existed in a regulatory grey area, where the line between legitimate innovation and technical infringement becomes extremely thin. If fully exploited, this characteristic could provide a significant performance advantage, while also raising serious questions about the consistency of rule enforcement at the highest level of competition. The FIA does conduct static load tests on wings to ensure compliance with technical regulations. However, these tests are performed under stationary and controlled conditions, meaning they do not fully represent real on-track situations involving high air pressure, extreme speeds, and constantly shifting dynamic loads. This gap is often exploited by teams to design components that technically pass static tests, yet display different characteristics when subjected to actual racing conditions. Although the FIA has conducted a thorough inspection of Mercedes' wing design, no violations were found, and therefore no penalties were imposed. However, the absence of sanctions has only intensified suspicions among rival teams. From Ferrari's perspective, the pattern that has emerged is difficult to ignore. From concerns surrounding engine performance to aerodynamic aspects, all of these issues have surfaced alongside a period in which Mercedes has demonstrated highly competitive performance gains. This situation raises further questions about the boundary between legitimate technical innovation and the potential exploitation of regulatory grey areas that are difficult to detect. The situation becomes even more intriguing as comments from within the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team begin to surface publicly. Lewis Hamilton has openly questioned the direction of the new regulations, a statement that implicitly reflects concerns about the effectiveness and implementation of current rules on track. This critical tone suggests that even top-tier teams still perceive grey areas within the regulations that may lead to differing interpretations. Meanwhile, his teammate George Russell has taken a more pragmatic approach, emphasising that public complaints will not provide concrete solutions to the technical challenges at hand. This difference in perspective has sparked various interpretations, including the notion that Mercedes is attempting to maintain internal team stability while avoiding further escalation of conflict in the media. From a communication strategy standpoint, Russell's approach reflects an effort to de-escalate the controversy and shift the focus back to technical work behind the scenes. It also signals confidence that the most effective solutions should come through formal channels, namely discussions between team engineers and governing bodies such as the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, rather than fueling competitive tensions through public opinion. On the other hand, Ferrari has grown increasingly vocal in expressing its concerns. For the Maranello-based team, the issue is no longer merely about innovation, since innovation is inherently part of Formula One's DNA, but rather touches on a far more fundamental question: to what extent the regulatory system is capable of monitoring, detecting, and consistently enforcing the rules effectively. If this mechanism fails to function optimally, it could gradually erode trust in the principle of fairness in competition, both among teams and fans. In Formula One, innovation has always moved faster than the regulations designed to govern it. Engineers treat the rulebook like a complex puzzle. They not only seek to understand what is explicitly written, but also carefully explore the gaps in what is not regulated. This approach often leads to revolutionary technical solutions that can reshape the competitive landscape. However, it also frequently sparks prolonged debates and major controversies, especially when the line between technical ingenuity and regulatory infringement becomes increasingly blurred. At this stage, there is no certainty as to whether the allegations against Mercedes will lead to regulatory changes. However, one thing is clear: pressure on the FIA is steadily increasing. In a sport where even the smallest margin can determine victory, even minor regulatory uncertainties can have significant consequences for the competition as a whole. Ultimately, this situation raises a much larger question. Has Mercedes discovered a technical loophole that current oversight systems cannot detect? Or is Ferrari strategically applying pressure on its rival at the dawn of a new era? Is this purely a demonstration of Mercedes' engineering brilliance, or a sign that Formula One regulations still contain major unresolved weaknesses? Share your thoughts below.